The Oklahoma City Thunder lost to the Toronto Raptors. Is the sky falling after this loss on the road? We'll talk about it coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by FanDuel, we're going to dive into the loss to the Toronto Raptors. Is the sky falling for the Oklahoma City Thunder? SGA drops 29 points. Josh Giddey plays efficient, and Tre Mann might be back while Luguentz Dort struggles in this game. Look, obviously, Chet was out, Poku was out, Kinnish was out, Jared Butler was out. The Thunder had their usual starting lineup, SGA, Giddey, Dort, J-Dub, J-Will, and they lost. And every loss this season has had sky is falling energy from it. And I just want to put these losses in perspective. Like, remember Tuesday, like we were throwing a parade on Tuesday after beating the Nets. So if they were to beat the Raptors, we'd be doing the same thing, because that would mean the Thunder had won that game. The Lakers had just lost to the Houston Rockets days before, the day before. Like, every loss, this is the NBA. The NBA is very fickle, game to game. Random things happen. If you think back to that loss against the Lakers, no AD, no LeBron, no D'Lo. They lost to the Lakers, and the season was over. Pack it in, time to tank. And you went from that extreme to what happened on Tuesday, whenever this team was in the 8th seed. Toronto's a good team at home. Like, at home, they're 22-13. They're a good team with Jakob Poeltl back, getting traded back to them at the deadline. And the Thunder have not been good on the road. So I get it. The excitement of, hey, in the 8th seed right now, Minnesota lost, Lakers lost. This game can get the Thunder back to up to 500 for the first time this year. And it didn't happen, so it's disappointing. And I thought that this game was going to go incredibly for OKC, because I figured, hey, SGA's back in Toronto, all the excitement around it kind of continuing that winning streak. That didn't happen. But this is not a football season. Not every loss is some travesty. You're not looking for a selection committee. You're not looking for style points. You're not looking for a 12-game sample size. They're going to play 82 games. And they've seen some crazy results, just as every team has, like the Lakers losing to the Rockets. Portland has lost 4 straight games. New Orleans is 3-7 in their last 10 games and dealing with injuries. Like, those are the teams that you are concerned with. And in fact, OKC, in their last 10 games, they're 6-4. The only team in the Western Conference who has a better than 6-4 record in their last 10 games is the Sacramento Kings, who are 8-2. They're great. They're playing great. But in this season, the Thunder have beat the Celtics, they've beat the 76ers, they've beat the Cavs, they've beat the Nuggets, they've beat the Grizzlies, they've beat the Knicks, they've beat the Clippers twice. Like, in this season, they've gotten some massive wins. In this season, they've gotten some hard losses. And that's why you just got to play the season out. Like, every loss doesn't have to mean, okay, pack it in. Okay, it's over. Just give up. And every win doesn't have to mean playing the parade and they're going to go win a championship. We don't know how the season's going to end. You can just let it play out. There is hardly any likely wins and likely losses in the NBA. The almighty Suns, who come to town on Sunday, they just beat Orlando by 3. Like, they had to play a tightly contested game against Orlando at home in Phoenix. So when they lose this game, it's easy to doom scroll and to spiral and what was thrown around in my mentions on Twitter yesterday. Oh, that's very likely that they go 0-4 now, 0-5, 0-6. Like, just throwing out these numbers. It's not very likely that they do anything. They might go 0-4. They might go 4-0, but very likely is just like you're just doing that based off one game, because after Tuesday, I guarantee you, what is said it's very likely that they're going to beat Toronto and they're going to go on a run, right? So just remember that basketball is not like football. I've been using that analogy throughout the entire season. It's not like football. Like, this is just the way NBA life works. And the upcoming schedule for OKC, remember, the only teams that matter in all of this, in terms of the standings, are the Thunder, Portland, New Orleans, the Lakers, and then, of course, you have Minnesota and Dallas, too. But, like, someone has to get in. And so every team right now, besides the Lakers, they're playing well, for their fan base, compared to what they were. Doesn't matter. Every fan base right now, like between Portland and Utah and New Orleans, they all feel down on their respective teams. But somebody's got to get into the plan. Somebody's got to find their way in. And this is the Thunder schedule. You play the Suns on Sunday. The Suns are great. It's a 2:30 tip. Things can get weird at 2:30. You're at home where you've played really well. Obviously, the team's going to want to get back on track. But like the Suns game, sure, on paper, should be a loss. Again, I wouldn't say that it's for sure a loss, but on paper, Suns should win that game. Then you travel out west, and this is where it gets tough. At Clippers in that baseball-style series with a day off in between, the same baseball-style series that you played in OKC where you swept the Clippers, but again, they didn't have Kawhi back then. Now, could you split that? Sure. Could you go 0-2? Sure. Could you go 2-0? Sure. I do not want this to be conflated. I don't care if you think that they're going to go 0-4. Like that's a very reasonable, bet, because 0-4 would mean, Suns, Clippers, Lakers loss, or 0-4 would mean, if you just want to talk about the road trip, Clippers loss, Lakers loss on a back-to-back, no Shai, and then in Portland, which would be like just a slip up. Okay, I mean that could happen, but we just don't know what will happen. So to act like because of this loss, the season's over, the season's down the drain, pack it in, just let the season play out. The beautiful thing about this season is it doesn't really matter. Like, if they don't make the play-in, they're going to be in the lottery. And if they're in the lottery, they have a shot to jump up. And if they don't jump up, they're still in the lottery, and they have the assets to go move up into the middle of the lottery, or whatever destined pick that you dream of. And if they make the play-in, that's great. This young team gets a chance to play in a playoff atmosphere. That's awesome. Like, it doesn't matter which way it goes. We can all have the opinions of like what we think would be best moving forward. And I think that the situation that is so complicated for maybe fans is like, as a fan base, if you're looking at it from a strictly team building perspective, yeah, the better the pick, the more awesome this gets. But you understand that, hey, as a fan, and also for the players, they're going to want to make the play-in, so like you're kind of rooting for that as well. It gets all conflated, it gets all confusing, but I would just say, do not continue to live in the game-to-game nature of all of this. Because that losing streak that the Thunder went on after the All-Star break, like it can all get turned around in a hurry in the NBA. With how tightly contested these standings are, it can get turned around both good and bad. And this is, so far, a one-off loss. But even that losing streak out of the All-Star break, this is how topsy-turvy it is. If Shai's shot banks in, and they win that game against Utah, then they lose the next, 3 or 4 because Shai got hurt. But if that shot banks in, we think of that stretch completely differently as well. Like it's literally a bounce of a ball. It's okay. Like whatever happens the rest of the year is going to happen. But look, there's a remaining schedule. Suns in the afternoon. Things can get weird. But let's just say loss, right? Because that's the most probable outcome. At Clippers. I don't know about you, but the Clippers have been pretty inconsistent. I don't feel comfortable like just predicting a sweep, like the Clippers get, the sweep the Thunder. So let's do a split. But I do understand if you want to say sweep, that's fine. But I'm going to say a split because I don't feel comfortable saying that this Clipper squad is going to take care of business twice in a row. Because so far, they haven't really done that. Lakers in LA on a back-to-back, likely no Shai, if they stick to the whole back-to-back plan, which there's no reason to believe that they wouldn't. So let's say no Shai against the Lakers. Again, Lakers have lost to the Houston Rockets, but let's say a loss because it is a back-to-back. And at some point, you would think that this young team who isn't quite adjusted. These rookies are not quite adjusted to playing 82 games. And really, the second-year guys didn't play 82 games last year. So, maybe they're not used to playing it. They're going to hit a wall at some point on these back-to-back stretches in a very condensed schedule. Sure, loss. So right there, that's 2 more losses, which would be 3 straight if we give them the first Clippers loss instead of the second Clippers loss. So 3 straight losses, then a win, then a loss to the Lakers. Portland is just not good. I know what we thought about them in the preseason. I know what we think of Dame and how great that he is. They're just not good. They're not good defensively. You're going to have Shai back to in the road trip. They're just not good. That's a win. The Hornets, not good. That's a win. The Pistons, on a back-to-back, no Shai. It shouldn't matter, but you lost to the Pistons earlier this year whenever you had Shai, so take that with a grain of salt. But nonetheless, if this team is going to make the play-in, they're going to take care of business against the Pistons. Pacers back with Shai. Again, I say a win there. I can see a loss if you want to, but that is right there. 4 straight wins. And then first the Suns again, loss. At the Warriors again, likely a loss because the Warriors are going to still be joshing for position. At Jazz, this is the season right here. And I'm going to say it's a win. At Utah. Could be wrong, but I'm saying it's a win. And so we just go through this whole schedule, and even though yesterday felt so awful because of the anticipation and the anticipatory nature of this whole season, or this whole stretch and getting to 500 and kind of getting over that hump of this season on Thursday against the Raptors. Because of all that, this loss feels terrible, but it can all level out. And then you play the Grizzlies the last game of the year. Who knows where the Grizzlies are going to be at that point? They could have already solidified their standings where they don't care about the game. They might care about the game, though, still, because the standings are so tight. So let's go ahead and safely predict a loss there to end the year. And that's kind of the stretch. It's a very manageable stretch. And sure, they could still miss the play-in. But I still do not have my opinion changed on where this team is at based upon that one game. And that's all that I'm really talking about here with OKC. It was one game. I still feel like blind resume test, the Thunder, who have the 3rd best net rating since January 1st, are better than the teams chasing them in the play-in. And by the way, the Thunder currently today, 34-36, they're a half game up on the play-in. They're in the play-in still, even with this loss. I think that they're going to finish there. But they might not. We'll have to wait and see. Coming up, though, how did the Thunder lose to Toronto? And SGA continues to dominate in this season, which is very impressive considering the way that it felt watching that game early on for SGA and for OKC. But today, this show is brought to you by the Nissan Aria. Folks, go shop now at nissanusa.com, and it's time to crown our electric player of the week. What better player to crown than SGA? SGA has dominated basketball this year, averaging 31 points a game. Steve Nash even gave him props on Twitter yesterday, as there was an article written about how he might be the next great Canadian basketball player, as in the next greatest of all time from Canada, surpassing Steve Nash. So maybe he reaches that height, but for sure, this week, he is Locked on Thunder's Nissan Most Electric Player, brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Aria. You can go there right now and see how SGA is electric and plays with brilliant fierce. Now, SGA, in this game, what's so special about him is that it felt like the Raptors were game planning very well for him. It felt like the Raptors were handling him. But you look up and it's well, not so fast, my friends. He's actually gotten 29 points on 63% shooting from the floor. That was the most impressive part of SGA's game. And that kind of signifies how impressive that SGA has been all year long, where it can feel like the length and the size is overwhelming the Thunder, and they have such a great game plan for stopping the Thunder's best player. And yet, it's an efficient 31 points. It's an efficient 29 points. It's an efficient, X amount of points that he scores every single night. So that's awesome. And that just shows his fiercely elegant power and his brilliant electricity. Go check it out today. It's the 2023 Nissan Aria packed pin to your seat punch with premium intelligence, all-in-one EV, all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Aria. The EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at NissanAria.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. And we're going to talk about how the Thunder lost to the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors controlled this game, and that was the bottom line. The Raptors handled every single run that the Thunder threw at them, and that was impressive. The Thunder, typically a great third-quarter team. They get the buzzer beater at the end of the half by Shai to make it a 5-point game. They head into their best quarter, the third quarter. In that third quarter, they get the game to a 4-point game, to a 5-point game, to a 6-point game. They get the game down to a 5-point game again, a 6-point game. Like they get the game down to where if they can just string together a couple of stops, it's all going to turn around in the game on the road in Toronto trying to get back to 500. And the Raptors just fended them off. The Raptors cashed down their open shots when the Thunder were late to rotations, but they also hit some difficult shots. Like they also hit some tough shots in the mid-range and with a hand in their face, and they knocked it down. And so they survived at home, 11 lead changes, 5 ties. And the big thing here is Toronto dominated in 3 key areas. They dominate the glass, 59-39, which led to them dominating second chance points, 21-12. And then Toronto beat the Thunder at their own game. Fast break points category, which I've been talking about for 2 years now, is good for the Thunder whenever they win. They typically win this category. Toronto just absolutely embarrasses the Thunder in the fast break category, 23-6. And a lot of that's due to Oklahoma City having 3 more turnovers than Toronto had in this game. And the Raptors capitalizing off of those. That's a rarity. If you watch the Thunder team, the reason that they've been so good is because they always force the opponent to turn the ball over more than they do. And that didn't happen tonight. Toronto kept the turnovers down, and they turned OKC over. OKC actually won points in the paint by 2 points, but still, the glass and the second chance points were the difference maker. Toronto shot 48% from the floor, 43% from 3, and 71% at the line. OKC shot 42, 42, and 90. The big difference was from the floor, 48-42. But OKC dominates at the line, but they didn't get enough calls. Like they didn't get enough opportunities at the line. Like Toronto, and at the end of the first quarter, like a 10-0 free throw attempt advantage for SGA and for the Thunder, who lead the NBA in drives. And so those kind of things happen. It's happened against Toronto way more often than not. So it is what it is. You just kind of have to live with it at that point. But that's how the Thunder lose to Toronto, and that's how this kind of all started with the whole doomsday scrolling on Twitter yesterday, which I thought was hilarious from this fan base. Tre Mann, I've got to give Tre Mann credit and also Mark credit. Like I think that Mark, how he mentioned that the opportunities are going to come back to Tre Mann, they're going to come back to JRE, and they've got to be ready for him. It came back to Tre Mann in a big game. SGA and Luguentz Dort returning to Canada. This game can get them to 500, can keep their winning streak alive. They won 6 of the last 7. This is a big game, big moment. And when Tre Mann first got inserted into the game, it was a tight, competitive, close game. And Mark put him in that spot to see, hey, what can he do with it? Because, and the game, of course, didn't turn into this close, competitive, back and forth, down to the wire game. It got crazy at the end. But because if you can play meaningful minutes in a meaningful game to break out of this cold streak, that's the type of thing that can kind of catapult your season and kind of make you and turn you into going from a cold streak to a hot streak. And Tre Mann played really well. 12 points, 2 rebounds, and assists, 2 for 3 from 3, 55% from the floor. He had the dunk, a tough rim finish, a step back 3. This is a huge game for him, and a huge game to get him back in the mix. And now here's the problem, though. Or not the problem, but the question or the what to watch for looking forward. Can Tre Mann stack these games on each other? Because so far he hasn't been able to. It's been like 5 bad games in a row, a good game. Okay, is he back? Is he cooking? Nope. 4 more bad games in a row. Did not play over this last stretch of games. Like, can this truly kind of change the course of his season this year? He's still a really young guy, still learning the NBA. He took a charge in this game, which was great. But I thought it was great by Mark to put Tre Mann in this game and in this situation and see how he did. Because he also did the same thing for Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. So it's not as though, what I'm pointing out here is Tre Mann got to play however many minutes in this game, a few minutes, obviously. But he did the same thing for Jeremiah Turner, who only got to play 9 minutes. Like, Tre Mann got to play 20 minutes, 21 minutes. JRE got to play 9 minutes. So he tried them both in this environment. He tried them both in this setting. But JRE did not play well, so he got pulled. It was not like okay, we're only going toward development here. We're not trying to win. They were trying to win, but they're also trying to develop and trying to get guys back kind of in the swing of things. And it didn't work for JRE, so they got him off the floor and kind of tried to figure out something better to put out there. And it worked for Tre Mann. And one of these days, it'll swing back over to JRE, and hopefully it'll work for him as well. Josh Giddey played well, I think. All things considered, 13 points, 7 rebounds, an assist, a steal, 1 for 2 from 3, and then 54% from the floor. An efficient 13 points was good for Josh Giddey. He had the just incredible behind-the-back pass at the elbow to Jay Whale, and that is just, wow. It was jaw-dropping, honestly, for Josh Giddey's pass. And so, that was good. J-Dub, the thing with him, he tried to end Christian Coloco's career, gave him an elbow to the face on accident, cutting to the basket, trying to dunk on him and posterize him. Ultimately, 15 points, 3 assists, 7 rebounds, was not as efficient as he usually is. I mean, he shot in this game 36%. I don't care about that. I don't care about his efficiency. I think that he's proven he can be a very efficient shot maker. What I would have liked to see more of from J-Dub was just more shots from him. Just purely more shots from him, especially in that end of the third, start of the fourth quarter area where it's still a 6-point game, 7-point game, and SGA's not on the floor, and you can't let this game get blown open, which is where Josh Giddey and J-Dub have to step up and Luguentz Dort to step up in those moments. And Josh Giddey had a couple turnovers, J-Dub wasn't able to make some shots, and Luguentz Dort just was not having a great night at all. And that stretch right there, the start of the fourth quarter, ended the game. So we'll talk about Luguentz Dort. We'll talk about what's to come, all coming up. But first, I want to say right now, my good friends over at BetterHelp. BetterHelp is awesome. It is a place for you to go and get some better help. BetterHelp is just great for if you're trying to get into therapy, and therapy, of course, is awesome to use. You can go to betterhelp.com/lockdown today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/locked-on. NBA to get started. That's Locked On NBA to get started with a 10% off of your first month. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designated to be convenient, flexible, and suitable for your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. It's going to match you with a licensed therapist, which you can switch at any time. If they match you with a therapist and you'd rather try a different therapist, you can switch that at any time with no additional charge. So just go right now to betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's betterhelp.com/lockedonnba to get started and get 10% off your first month, because it's great and a great tool to use. Betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. We are going to talk about Luguentz Dort, but first, thank you so much for making us your first listen. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA show, a national perspective on all basketball. Luguentz Dort, terrible night. I mean, there's nothing else to really say about it. He took some ill-advised shots as well that really hindered the Thunder's ability in this game to string together good offensive possessions. And the 1-3 that he hit was in the corner, which was where he should be camping out a lot. And it was a great job by him. He relocated very well to the corner, kind of got himself open for SGA to spray out to him after SGA kind of dove through the lane. The bottom line is, as frustrating as it is, we know the deal. Until Luguentz Dort is less aggressive offensively, because other players are being more aggressive offensively, and it puts him more in a restricted role offensively, there's going to be nights like this. There's also going to be nights like Tuesday, where he blitzes the Nets from 3 in the third quarter and turns the whole game on its head and allows the Thunder to win. The Thunder did not win that game on Tuesday without that third quarter 3 barrage by Luguentz Dort. And you can make the argument that, if you don't go 2 for 11, the Thunder have a better chance to stick around in this game on Thursday, kind of the duality of Luguentz Dort. But this was not a good night from him. He took a lot of ill-advised shots, I felt like, but this is just the formula of this season and of this current roster. And as these players develop more around him, and as you get Chet Holmgren back, and as you select another guy in the draft, and however else you want to flesh out this roster through trades or whatever, like the hope is, the idea is that this kind of pushes him down the ladder. And I think that Mark revealed some of that earlier in the season, where he was talking about how every guy comes in kind of like a number line, and like some guys come in where they're too fit into the team. Some guys come in where they're too aggressive, and you're trying to get all of those guys closest as possible to the middle, because you really want them to all be kind of right in the middle of being way too fit-in-ish and like kind of reserved or like timid or just wanting to play their role. And you want them to be in the middle of, from the extreme of taking too many shots, just kind of hunting for their own shots and stuff like that. So he's talked about how, and the examples that he used was J-Dub needs to be more aggressive and closer to the middle on the aggressive side. And then Lu Dort needs to be less aggressive. It needs to be more like J-Dub of fitting in more on that middle side, to where if they can meet in the middle, that'll be really, really good for the team. So like the team is aware that these kind of nights happen. And I think that some of it too, like, cannot be undersold. These guys are humans. Like, these guys feel emotion. This is not 2K where like every game is just a monotonous same thing of clicking your controller, going to the arena and playing a basketball game. Like, each game has their different emotions to them. And for Lu Dort to return home and to play in front of his home team, his home crowd, to have, I'm sure, many family members there and friends there, and to share that moment with SGA, and to have a game like this where you're sharing with SGA, you're back in your hometown, you just came off of a game which was your best game of the season, where you shot and made 5 threes in the third quarter and helped the Thunder win a massive game. This game can get you back to 500 again in your hometown and really solidify what you've been doing this season, and kind of the surprise nature of this season. All those things kind of combined to where I thought Lu Dort kind of pressed a little bit offensively. And there's kind of a reason for that. There's kind of a explanation for what happened here with Lu Dort. So I think that that's kind of all there is to it. We understand what the issue is. I think that the team understands what the issue is, and we just see how long it takes to get solved. I think that it should be solved next year, but we'll see. Other notes from the game. I didn't think Saric particularly had it tonight. I think that you saw that whenever they took Saric out and put Jerry back in, and then he didn't have it, and they went to Sar. I thought that Sar actually gave good minutes. Like, I know it kind of slapped you in the face whenever you saw Olivier Sarr in there, and you're like, whoa, why are they playing a two-way guy in such a big moment? But Olivier Sarr actually played really well at creating possessions, and he only got 1 rebound, but he got a lot of those tip-outs and a lot of those box-outs to clear out guys to go try to get rebounds. Also had some good rim deterrent opportunities in those 10 minutes. Like, he played really well in 10 minutes, Sarr did. But all in all, when we talk about the struggles of the team, like, Lu Dort didn't have it tonight. Wiggins didn't have it tonight particularly. Jerry didn't have it tonight. Lindy Waters didn't have it tonight. Usman didn't have it tonight. Like, you're starting to pile up all these different guys who didn't have it tonight, and the only ones that did were like Giddey and SGA, and Isaiah Joe was really good with 3 for 5 from 3. Like, those ones that really had it tonight. And Isaiah Joe still took a couple mid-range setbacks that just didn't convert and look like bad shots. Again, if those shots go in, we don't call them bad shots, because he did create space and did get room to shoot. Nonetheless, though, it is what it is. This is a loss, but the sky does not have to fall after every loss of the season. You do not have to view this as a football season. Coming up, Monday, we're going to recap that Suns game. Tuesday, who stood out in the opening weekend of March Madness for the NBA Draft. Wednesday, Clippers recap. Thursday, Stock Watch. Friday, Clippers recap again, because it's a baseball-style series. Saturday, Lakers recap. Monday, Blazers recap. We're here for you every single day talking Thunder basketball. Until then, be good, and be good to one another.